Along with Jonathan Choe, I'm Ravi Kapur for another edition of Protected Speech, and we're going to get into the presidential race, which is already beginning pretty early. We had a chance to have a conversation with President Trump in late September of 2022, and he basically tipped us off that he was running for president. So he's declared on the GOP side of the ledger already. But now we have two more candidates officially entering the realm, and they happen to be Indian American, which is incredible. Both Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to go for that GOP position as a presidential candidate. Of course, Nikki Haley served in the Trump administration as the ambassador to the United Nations, and she was also the former governor of South Carolina. Ramaswamy is a new face, has written a book called Woke Inc., and he's out there on the stump giving speeches and selling books, and has done very well in the business world. But it's fascinating that we now have a couple of more candidates. Haley, well known, but Ramaswamy, an up and coming person throughout this process, Jonathan.
Well, Ramaswamy doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell, but he understands the media. And I think that's clearly right now a play. And he understands the context of sort of what's happening in our country, this anti-woke movement that's happening and really being pushed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And I think he's simply leveraging that. I think he's going to use this opportunity to get as much media attention as possible. And he's going to get that messaging out because that really is part of the narrative. And of course, Nikki Haley, not a real surprise. She said she was going to make a big announcement today, and she just did. I would love to see her in the White House, but I think she'd be right now a great vice presidential candidate. I just don't think she's going to have the votes to really coalesce and make it happen. But again, it's so early. We haven't even heard of Ron DeSantis yet announced, and he's expected to as well.
It is very early, and of course, Nikki Haley could be doing the Kamala Harris playbook. I mean, the current sitting vice president, who is Indian American as well, Harris ran for president quite briefly, and she got out of the race very early on when the numbers didn't seem to substantiate a presidential run. But she got out early enough where it didn't cause too much damage, and she was able to withstand some pot shots she took at President Biden and was able to get on that ticket, and Biden took it home to win in 2020. So we'll see how this thing all plays out. Obviously, Biden hasn't made an official announcement, but there have been multiple kind of pronouncements that he's going to run again in 2024. And of course, a Trump-Biden rematch seems like the most likely outcome, but DeSantis certainly has a lot of support in Florida and beyond. And then Haley is someone who we hear is not just someone who can run for president, but could be a VP ticket for on the VP ticket for either Trump or DeSantis potentially. So that's where I think she's well positioned.
But if you look at some of the early polling right now, one just came out just this week indicating that if Biden and Trump were the two nominees, I mean, there just isn't an appetite in this country right now for both of those candidates. Both are deeply flawed. There just isn't the energy behind that. I think this country is really looking for a new direction, new faces, new ideas. Because I think the last 2-3 years, 4-5 years now, under either a Trump or Biden administration, has really taken a toll on this country. Everyone's just tired, and they want to move on from everything we've been dealing with, from COVID to the height of the social justice protests to the homeless crisis to rising crime to, I mean, what else are we dealing with? High gas prices, inflation, the list goes on and on. So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I think Haley really is a viable candidate in a sense where she has brand name recognition. What she does with that, though, in terms of actually leveraging that to a VP position or maybe, who knows, becoming the nominee, I think that's going to be really interesting. But either way, what this does, both candidates being Indian American, as you said, I think what this does is really bring attention to the diaspora that there are viable candidates in this space. Indian American, South Asians, they are here to stay and make big plays for office.
And keep in mind, in the last cycle, the Indian American community largely voted for Biden and Harris. That reversed a trend from the Trump election victory of 2016, where Trump actually pulled a lot of support from the Indian community. But it went back to about 78 to 80% in 2020 for Biden and Harris. So to see two Indian American candidates who think that they can maybe peel from this base of most Indian Americans are kind of moderate. They don't lean hard to the right or hard to the left, and so we have this huge base in the middle. Obviously, they need more than just Indian Americans to win a general election or to even get through the primary. But I think Ramaswamy's candidacy is interesting because he is tapping into some of these core issues that we've discussed on this show. Public safety is a very big deal, and making sure that our children are educated in a manner where they can get ahead. I think these are core issues that are going to resonate with most folks. Again, we've been talking about a lot of these issues that you're seeing on the front lines, and I think that's what he's trying to get across, that he might be the fresh voice, a different kind of leader to take this country forward, because we've seen Trump in office, we've seen Biden in office. Kamala Harris is an experienced politician, also a potential presidential candidate at some point in the near future. And then, of course, Nikki Haley, also an established politician. Well, Ramaswamy has no track record of running
All the
anything.
issues you're talking about right now that Ramaswamy will be running on: crime, homelessness, public safety, the anti-woke movement, all of that has happened under Democrats. It's happened under the Biden administration. So obviously, like I said, I think this is going to be a great opportunity to bring these narratives back. But the Biden administration can't run on any of that because it's their failed policies that have led to these problems. So if Ramaswamy can, at the very least, leverage that, I think he could really make a dent and hurt the Biden campaign if he decides to run again.
Well, he's someone to look out for, and we wanted to point this out. And we'll see. It's so early stage. We'd love to talk to both Ambassador Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy in the near future to really get a sense of what their platforms will be. But I'm just blown away at the fact that we have two legitimate people that are running for the GOP nomination. And then, of course, on the Democratic side of the ledger, where, again, the majority of the activity has been, now there are 5 Indian Americans in Congress. Certainly we know one of them for sure, Ro Khanna, has his eyes on the White House, probably not in this cycle, but 2028, certainly a possibility for him to run for the Oval. So we've had a lot of activity on the left, and now we're having a resurgence of Indian Americans trying to represent the GOP.
Yeah, and
All
don't
right, moving forward.
Indian Americans in the GOP. That's what I wanted to finally say. Look, I understand that the pendulum is swinging, but I think a lot of Indian Americans, the Hindus, I think they're seeing what's happening in the community, and I think a lot of what they've built, what they fought for, their values are being undercut and undermined by a lot of these far left progressive liberal values.